Hello everyone, and welcome back to IT Master. In this tutorial, we're going to build a complete interactive SVG MotionPath animation using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and GSAP. We're going to write the project from scratch, so I'll explain the code as we build it. Our final result will contain a futuristic hero section, a custom SVG path, a moving rocket, automatic rotation, scroll-controlled animation, a progress indicator, and play, pause, and restart controls. Let's start with the HTML file. HTML code. First, I'm creating a standard HTML5 document. I'm using the doc-type HTML declaration, followed by the HTML element with the language set to English. Inside the head, I'm adding the character encoding and the viewport meta tag. The viewport setting is important because we want our layout to work correctly on desktop, tablet, and mobile devices. Now I'm adding the title of the page. I'm calling this project SVG MotionPath Animation with GSAP. Next, I'm connecting our external CSS file. So I'm adding style.css. Now we need GSAP. I'm using the SAP CDN, which gives us the main GSAP animation library. After that, I'm loading the ScrollTrigger plugin. ScrollTrigger allows us to connect animations to the user's scroll position. And finally, I'm loading the MotionPath plugin. This is the main plugin we're going to use today. MotionPathPlugin allows an HTML or SVG element to move along a path. Now let's move into the body. I'm creating a main element that will contain the entire website. Hero section. The first section is our hero section. I'm giving it the class hero. Inside the hero, I'm creating a container called hero content. First, I'm adding a small badge. The badge simply says SVG plus GSAP. This gives the user an immediate indication of the technology we're using. Next, I'm adding our main heading. The heading says Motion Beyond Limits. I'm placing the second part inside a span because I want to give it a different visual treatment with CSS. Below the heading, I'm adding a short paragraph explaining what this project does. Then I'm creating an Explore Motion button. The button is actually an anchor link, so when the user clicks it, the page will scroll toward the MotionPath section. Finally, I'm adding a small scroll hint at the bottom of the hero. This tells the user that they can scroll to interact with the animation. Motion Experience section. Now we're creating the main section of our project. I'm giving this section the ID Experience. This is also the section our Explore Motion button will link to. Inside it, we have a section header. The small eyebrow text says 01/MotionPath. Then we have the heading, follow the path, and a short description explaining that the object will travel through a custom SVG path. Now we need the actual animation area. I'm creating a container called Motion Stage. This will become the main visual area of the project. Inside it, I'm adding a background grid. The grid is created entirely with CSS. Now let's create the SVG. I'm using a viewbox of 1200 by 700. The viewbox is important because it gives our SVG its internal coordinate system. The SVG itself can then scale to different screen sizes. Creating the SVG path. Now we're at the most important part of the HTML. I'm creating a path element. The first path is called Path Glow. This path is going to sit behind the main path and create a soft glowing effect. Now I'm creating the actual motion path. I'm giving it the ID MotionPath. This ID is very important because we're going to select this path from JavaScript. The D attribute contains the actual path coordinates. I'm using cubic Bezier curves to create a smooth route. So instead of a simple straight line, the path moves up, curves down, and then moves back upward toward the final point. This gives us a more interesting route for our object. Start and end points. Next, I'm adding two circles. The first circle represents the starting point. The second circle represents the ending point. These aren't responsible for the animation. They're simply visual markers that help the user understand where the journey begins and ends. Creating the rocket. Now I'm creating our moving object. I'm using an SVG group element with the class rocket. Inside this group, I'm adding a glow circle. Then I'm adding the smaller bright core. And finally, I'm creating the rocket shape with an SVG path. The important thing here is that all of these elements are inside the same group. So when we move the group, the entire rocket moves together. Later, GSAP will move this group along our SVG path. Progress interface. Now I'm adding a small progress card. Inside it, we have the text. Mission progress. On the right side, we have a percentage value. Initially, that value is 0%. Below it, we have a progress line. The inner span starts with 0 width. We'll change that width dynamically with JavaScript. Animation controls. Now we're adding 3 buttons. The first button is play. The second is pause. And the third is restart. We'll connect these buttons to our GSAP timeline later. Final section. Finally, I'm creating a closing section. This section contains the title. SVG Motion Reimagined. And underneath, I'm showing the technologies used in the project. SVG, GSAP, JavaScript, and CSS. At the bottom of the HTML, I'm connecting our JavaScript file. Script.js. That's all the HTML we need. Now let's move into the CSS. CSS code. At the top of the CSS file, I'm importing the inter font. Then I'm resetting the default margin and padding for all elements. I'm also using box sizing, border box. This makes sizing much easier to control. Next, I'm enabling smooth scrolling on the HTML element. Now let's style the body. I'm using a very dark background and white text. This gives us the premium futuristic look we're going for. I'm also hiding horizontal overflow because our animation contains elements that can move outside the normal layout area. Hero CSS. Now let's style the hero section. I'm making it almost the full height of the viewport. I'm using Flexbox to center the content horizontally and vertically. The background uses a radial gradient. The center contains a subtle blue glow, while the rest of the background remains dark. Now I'm limiting the width of the hero content. Next, I'm styling the badge. It has a small border, rounded corners, and a transparent background. This creates the glass style appearance. Now let's style the main heading. I'm using the CSS clamp function. This is useful because the font size automatically adapts to different screen sizes. I'm also using a very tight line height and negative letter spacing to create a large modern typography style. The span inside the heading gets a gradient. The gradient is applied to the text using background clip. So instead of a normal solid color, the text itself becomes a gradient. Hero button. Now I'm styling the Explore Motion button. I'm using Flexbox so the text and arrow are aligned correctly. The button has a transparent background, a subtle border, and rounded corners. I'm also adding a hover effect. When the mouse moves over the button, the background becomes slightly brighter and the button moves upward by a few pixels. This gives us a small micro-interaction. Motion Stage CSS. Now let's move to the main animation container. The motion stage is the large box that contains our SVG. I'm giving it a responsive width and height. It has rounded corners, a subtle border, and a dark background. I'm also adding a radial gradient behind the SVG. This gives the center of the animation a subtle glow. Creating the grid. Now we're styling the grid. Instead of adding hundreds of HTML lines, we're creating the grid using CSS gradients. The first linear gradient creates horizontal lines. The second creates vertical lines. Together, they form the futuristic grid. I'm also using a mask so the grid gradually fades toward the edges. This prevents the grid from looking too heavy. SVG styling. Now we're styling the SVG itself. It fills the entire motion stage. The main path has no fill because we only need its stroke. I'm using a dashed stroke. This creates the small moving line appearance along the route. The glow path is much thicker. I'm also applying a blur effect to it. Because the glow path sits behind the main path, it creates a soft light effect. Rocket styling. Now let's style the rocket. The rocket group is centered around its own transform origin. The glow circle receives a blur. The core is white. And the rocket shape receives a blue color and a drop shadow. This makes the object look like a glowing futuristic vehicle. Progress card. Now we're styling the progress card. It's positioned near the bottom of the motion stage. I'm using a semi-transparent black background combined with backdrop filter. This creates the glass morphism effect. The progress line itself is very thin. The inner span starts at 0 width because JavaScript will control its width later. Controls. Now we're styling the buttons. Each button has a transparent background, a subtle border, rounded corners, and white text. On hover, the background becomes white and the text becomes black. This gives us a clean interactive effect. Responsive CSS. At the bottom, we're adding media queries. When the screen becomes smaller, we reduce the heading size. We also change the controls from a horizontal layout to a vertical layout. And on very small screens, we hide the path labels because they don't provide enough space on mobile. Now our CSS is complete. Let's move into the most important file. JavaScript. JavaScript code. At the very beginning, I'm registering the two GSAP plugins. The first is ScrollTrigger. The second is MotionPathPlugin. Without registering these plugins, GSAP won't be able to use their functionality. Selecting elements. Now I'm selecting our important HTML elements. First, I'm selecting the rocket. Then the motion path. Then the progress percentage. Then the progress bar. And finally, our 3 control buttons. Now JavaScript can communicate with these elements. Measuring the SVG path. Here's an important SVG technique. I'm calling getTotalLength. This returns the total length of the SVG path. I'm storing that value inside pathLength. Now I'm setting the path stroke dash array to that length. And I'm setting the stroke dash offset to the same value. Because the dash offset is equal to the complete length of the path is effectively hidden. Now when we animate the dash offset back to 0, the path will appear as if it's drawing itself. Creating the GSAP timeline. Now we're creating the main GSAP timeline. I'm setting pause to true. This means the timeline won't automatically start. We'll control it ourselves. The first animation is the SVG path. I'm animating the stroke dash offset from the full length down to 0. The duration is 5 seconds. I'm using linear easing so the path draws at a consistent speed. Motion path animation. Now we're going to move the rocket. This is the most important part of the tutorial. I'm calling sap.to. The target is our rocket group. The duration is also 5 seconds. And now we define the motion path. We're telling GSAP to use our SVG path. We're also setting align motion path. This aligns the rocket with the path. Then we use auto rotate true. This automatically rotates the rocket according to the direction of the path. So when the path curves upward, the rocket turns upward. When the path curves downward, the rocket follows that direction. We don't need to calculate any rotation values manually. This is exactly why MotionPathPlugin is so useful. Synchronizing the animations. Notice that both animations are added to the same timeline. The path animation starts at 0. The rocket animation also starts at 0. Both have a duration of 5 seconds. That means the path drawing and rocket movement remain perfectly synchronized. Play button. Now let's connect the play button. When the user clicks play, we're calling MotionTimeline.play. This tells GSAP to start or continue the timeline. Pause button. For the pause button, we're calling MotionTimeline.pause. This freezes the animation exactly where it currently is. Restart button. And for restart, we're calling MotionTimeline.restart. This sends the timeline back to the beginning and starts it again. Scroll trigger. Now we're going to connect the animation to scrolling. We're creating a scroll trigger instance. The trigger is our motion stage. We define a start position and an end position. The most important setting here is Scrub 1. Scrub means that the animation progress follows the scroll position. So as we scroll down, the animation moves forward. And if we scroll back up, the animation moves backward. This gives us interactive scroll-driven animation. Progress calculation. Inside the onUpdate callback, ScrollTrigger gives us the current progress. The value is between 0 and 1. For example, 0 means the animation hasn't started. Half means we're at the middle. And 1 means the animation is complete. We're multiplying the value by 100 and rounding it. Now we can display values such as 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. Then we're updating the progress bar width using the same value. This keeps our interface synchronized with the animation. Hero entrance animation. Now we're adding some animation to the hero section. We're creating a separate GSAP timeline. First, the badge moves upward while fading in. Then the heading appears. After that, the paragraph appears. And finally, the button appears. Because we're using different positions on the timeline, these animations happen one after another. This creates a smooth entrance sequence. Scroll-based section reveals. Now we're adding reveal animations to the other sections. When the MotionPath section enters the viewport, the section header moves upward and fades into view. We're doing the same thing with the controls section. And finally, we animate the content in our final section. These animations are triggered using ScrollTrigger. Final result. And that's our complete SVG MotionPath animation. Let's quickly review what we've built. We started with a custom SVG path. We created a glowing duplicate path for the visual effect. Then we created a rocket using SVG shapes. Using GSAP MotionPathPlugin, we made that rocket follow the SVG path. With Auto Rotate, the rocket automatically follows the direction of the path. We used SVG stroke dash properties to create the path drawing animation. Then we connected the timeline to ScrollTrigger. Now the user scrolling controls the animation. We also created a live progress percentage. We added a progress bar. And finally, we created play, pause, and restart controls. So this project demonstrates how SVG and GSAP can work together to create much more advanced web animations. The important concept to remember is that MotionPath isn't limited to rockets. You can use exactly the same technique for cars, airplanes, characters, icons, product images, UI elements, or even entire website components. All you need is an SVG path and an element that you want to move along it. Outro. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe to IT Master. Here we build modern web experiences using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SVG, GSAP, and advanced animation techniques. If you want to see more interactive front-end projects like this one, stay connected with the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.